Javi,
What's good?
thanks for coming.
100%, bro.
I'm excited about this. So episode 1 of the Guys podcast.
Let's get it.
What this is going to be is it's going to be a lot of different things, right? A lot of different conversations. But it's going to be with people whose values we admire and are out there doing something great, right? Building something that's going to make the world a better place in some way, shape, or form. And that's going to look a lot of different ways. Could be athletics, could be business, could be art.
Why'd you want to start this?
It's something that I really enjoy, right? Is having conversations with passionate people out there doing something. And when your head's down and when you're really knocking out what you're knocking out, right, in your world, in your frame of reference, it can be hard to be intentional about going to have conversations with someone in a very different world but has a similar passion.
100%.
Right? So this gives us a platform to pick our head up and go have some of those conversations, which are fucking fun.
Hell yeah.
They're a blast,
Always.
right? We talk about these conversations all the time.
No, 100%. I always, I think it was at dinner the other day, you know, we meant to go get out a couple drinks or something, and it ends up to a full-blown 3-hour discussion at the dinner table and shit. So it's like, yeah, no, it's fun to talk business, dude. Thanks for having me. Stoked to be number one.
So, like I said, this is Javier Rodriguez. Javi is an artist, a graphic designer, founder of the designing and branding agency, the Horizon Creative Collective, which is a great business that we just had the opportunity to acquire, which we'll get into later. You're the front man of the reggae band Operation Culture.
Yes, sir.
Who else is in that band
My
with
brother
you?
Daniel, a.k.a. the Doctor Lifted.
And Javi also is someone that I've known for a long time, both personally and professionally. So excited to have him on. He is definitely someone that embodies the values of integrity and really living a life of love that we want to spotlight and have conversations with. So cheers to you.
Well, cheers to you, dude.
And excited to get this rolling.
100%. Yo, yeah, there we go. Yo, cheers to Logan.
Cheers to Logan off camera.
Big up Logan, helping us do this first production.
Thanks for helping on the producer booth. So how'd you get started in graphic design and branding, which is what Horizon does?
I think I started first, like, defining what branding is. I feel like the word brand gets thrown around a lot nowadays. Some people think it's like logos, or it's like the combination of logos and colors. But one time someone explained it to me as your brand is the promise of who you are to the outside world, right? So it's pretty much like defining that, like, I think it's clear out the gate, very important, that branding is like the promise of how you're going to make people feel. So the way I got involved in branding before I even knew what branding was, growing up skateboarding with Daniel, the Doctor, and a bunch of friends of mine, and we wanted to start a skate team. I had this little video camera that I had gotten for
Classic
Christmas.
90 kid stuff.
Yeah, classic like video camera, used AA batteries, you know, not 720, none of these iPhones that people have now. It was so funny. We used to actually make, the batteries would run out so fast at the skate park, we would make Daniel run to the Dollar General next door to grab batteries for us. Like, yo, dude, we need some more batteries, like in the middle of someone trying to trick. But either way, through skateboarding, we wanted to start a skate team, and like whatever that meant was at that time like some little kid shit. But through that, I got into like graphic design. I was making skate videos, and when I say graphic design, I got into, I think I had a cracked version of Photoshop from like Peru, to be honest, from Peru, where my family's from, like some bootleg version of Photoshops, and I'm like sitting there making graphics for my skate team and whatever. Started putting clips up pre-YouTube days when you used to have to like embed QuickTime files on websites if you wanted people to watch your videos online. So I was lucky enough to have that experience at a young age, because my dad worked at IBM all my life and had technology before most people. So
you were telling a story. You were telling a story that happened to be an early adopter. You were telling a story using technology at an early age.
Dude, such an early age. Like, I honestly attribute most of what I do today to just skateboarding, to be honest, because it was never really like, I'm going to get into branding, or I'm going to get into videos, or I'm going to get into music, or I'm going to do whatever. It was always just like, hey, I'm interested in this that I'm very passionate about. I love going skateboarding with my friends. I just want to like film and document this. Like, I got a lot of funny friends, as you've met some of them, you know, like Matt, JP, Premier Skate, OG crew, shout out. I made a YouTube when YouTube first came out, and it was like, we had so many views and so many funny comments of hate. We were talking about earlier, like haters and stuff. Like, I had a trick tip up there, and I was like, this person didn't teach shit. And so at an early age, I started figuring out that like what I was creating was influencing thoughts and ideas. Would I articulate that in the moment? Probably not. I was just filming skate videos or whatever.
Just doing what you loved and videoing it.
Yeah. So from there, you know, went to work at the skate shop for a few years. Went to college, worked at a surf shop. I did the whole like trade show industry thing. And then honestly, like starting my first band with my brother, everything had a purpose. I learned graphic design because I wanted to make dope flyers. I learned video because I wanted to make dope promos and I wanted to make sure people were filming us right. I learned more photo stuff because I wanted everything to be like pristine and pro as possible because I was just hooked. I was just hooked on music and on playing shows and having fun. And after a while, after I graduated college and I had my first 9-to-5, and I realized this may not be for me. What can I do that's not sitting at a desk 9-to-5? And kind of came up with this concept of, you know, building brands for people. I've done it for myself, like with the skate team, with the surf shops, with the skate shops, and now obviously with the music, which was the most important thing. And I started replicating that with different people. So it was definitely a long journey to be what I think what people call brand strategy. But it's something that I truly enjoy now, whether it's a musician or a nonprofit or a business.
Awesome. Yeah, so it's really about, it was a journey of telling different stories that you were already passionate about in different mediums, and you didn't even realize that that was you, like, learning to be a brand storyteller, a brand strategist, yeah?
I lucked out 100%. I always think that. I always tell my brother, too, that if we had not had skateboarding and technology at the age that we did, we would be doing such different things right now.
Yep.
So yeah, didn't no clue, but I've been telling brand stories for a hot minute.
I think that that's definitely a blessing that me and you have in common, is that we found a passion. Right? I think we both have things that we know at a relatively young age that we're pretty passionate about, and that's why we're here, right? 100%. So that was going to be one of my next questions, was how'd you decide to start Horizon? But it sounds like it was almost not even not necessarily the most intentional thing. It was an evolution.
Horizon, I honestly started Horizon because I wanted to be in a band and I wanted to have an excuse not to sit at a 9-to-5, straight up. Yeah. And through that, I learned.
This isn't necessarily all advice, kids.
Yeah. No, 100% no. This is storytelling. You know, you learn from people's mistakes. You learn from people's triumphs and what took them to get there. And I think that, yeah, this is exactly one of those parts we were talking about earlier about grinding through the tough parts, being in the trenches. Like, yep. Starting Horizon at the age of 23, 24 wasn't what I thought it was, yep. But it was what I needed. I learned a lot of lessons throughout, you know, some very tough. So you started it, right? And then what exactly did you guys start doing? So what were the deliverables, the tangible products that you would do for Horizon that you were already doing for yourself? Basically, at the core of the business was what I would like to consider brand strategy. So an overall creative strategy of how you're going to communicate someone's message. And the hardcore deliverables that come with that are like the logo, the colors, the way, the voice, the imagery, what type of photos are they going to post, what kind of message are they trying to share, how do they want to interact with their consumers or their partners. That also comes along with, you know, the whole website, videos, photos, productions, and, you know, a whole load of things. Early on, I realized that like I liked every part of it, you know, whether it was planning a production video, planning a photo shoot, like even trying to like learn new little websites techniques and nerd out. Like I liked every aspect of it. So I wanted to do it all, which was one of the hardest lessons I learned, to be honest. When you're trying to do everything at all times, like things fall short, 100%. And definitely starting Horizon. Like I said, I started it because I didn't want a 9 to 5 anymore. After a year and a half, I was just, I'm super ADHD, couldn't sit at a desk, like wasn't for me. I was that dude at the water cooler like every 5 minutes, like 100%. Everybody knows. Exactly, right? I got shit. I would find an excuse to get up and like make people coffee, or just like, can I go crack a joke with this person? Can I go to water? Oh, I guess it's lunchtime. Like the desk life just wasn't for me. So I'm so like to this day, still doing the music thing. And that's all I wanted to do. That's all I cared about. And so I started Horizon to get like my parents off my back and like people off my back. I was like, oh, I can, flip websites and like help people like me. I was right in a lot of ways, but I was wrong in way more for sure.
I think, one of the reasons I came to you was you could tell that you were definitely passionate about doing that, right? Doing the storytelling for brands, helping set the creative direction. We had the opportunity to work together some, right? So that's been pretty fun. And tight. I think ultimately led us to, part of what we're announcing today is the acquisition, right? But why don't you talk about some of the needs? So you would, some of the needs that you saw in your clients, right? In your brands that weren't branding, and why you think that why that allowed us to work together in a way that was productive.
One when we started working together, a common theme that I found in all our projects was that they knew who they were more. They understand themselves more before I even got there, right? I found that a lot of my clients over the years, especially smaller businesses, don't know who they are, and they immediately jump to like, we need a logo, we need a website, we need to be posted on social media. And while all that's true, like it's a process to get there. You're not going to be like what you want to be tomorrow.
Yep.
And for small businesses, it's hard, especially in years like this year where like climates are tough and things are changing at such a rapid pace. Like the most common like thing I found that small businesses were struggling was not defining who they were earlier on. Because a lot of that translates to the rest of your business, whether it's how your website looks, your photos, how you do your accounting, how you, communicate to people on the phone, like the culture of, I think what we were talking about is like authenticity, right? It's like the culture of that is tough to build. It's not easy, and I think that that's a realistic situation that people needed to consider when starting businesses is, how can I really build a culture that I believe in?
Yep.
And that other people are going to believe in constantly.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that that brands make is they try to have a social media or a brand identity before they even have a personal one.
Exactly. That's 100. I couldn't have said it better.
Right. And so I think this is a good example. We're, Geist 168th, I founded it more than a year ago now, and we still don't have a social media post. Right. And I think part of that was what we did know at the beginning was we did know values, but we did not know exactly what the business was going to be, right? This was started as like charged by the hour consulting, and I think now we're much more service oriented, where this is a specific service, right? It's a branding.
It started as a line. That's a good example right there. I don't know if you want to tell the people the story.
Yeah, we don't need to get into my background, but to kind of tease the story, I had left my finance background and knew the values I prescribed to, right? It was deep integrity. It was pragmatism. In business, it's not perfect. You just got to get it done. And then discipline, right? A lot of things that I would see is, people want to talk a big talk or do the branding stuff without, hitting a number, picking a number, and getting it done. Day in, day out. And so we knew those were values, but I did not know what the business was going to be. So I knew I had some business skill sets. I think the first name of the brand was like Simply Consulting.
Like Simple or Consulting or like Aligned.
Aligned Consulting. Something. Terrible. Just not
and
cookie cutter 101. Not not differentiating.
And I was in Wilmington at the time, but I was visiting Raleigh, and it was on the verge of, I forgot why I was here, but it was on the verge, like, you had just left the job, you were doing this, and you hadn't even told me yet, and I was like on my way out of town. Be honest, I remember just being super hungover. And I was like, hey, let me get breakfast with Tom and see how he's doing. And then what happened when you told me the idea?
Yeah, you said that sucks. It's terrible. That's a bad name.
But there was honesty is always the best policy.
Facts.
But there's a reason, my guy. Thank you. But there's a reason though it sucked, and it didn't suck because it wasn't like a cool, like the word simple's tight, the words align's tight, but it was like I knew immediately that there was probably not a deep story behind that word.
No soul.
There was no soul in that, and two, like, so there first you got narrative, and then two, you got technical. Like if people Googled that, like you're not going to you're not going to be able to compete. It's going to be a long time before simple consulting or aligned consulting is going to have you, people understand who you are.
Yep.
But I mean, that's a great example right there of like telling the narrative,
Yep.
A big part of why I love branding. It's honestly storytelling as people have done for years. So Logan, our boy, Logan Webber, just asked me if each company needs a certain package or if some people need specific different needs. I think when it comes to branding and establishing like this word brand again, I personally break it down into these things. So your visual identity, that includes your logo, your color schemes, the fonts you use, the way that the types of photos you use. Are you using like an old vintage film camera for all your marketing, or are you using, just the iPhone quick? Like this is what it is. The voice, the way you speak on the phone, the way you speak in your emails, the way you speak in your social media posts. Sick. The way you speak is also, very important, very important and influential to a brand. Apart from visual identity, it's all the ways that you make sure you're being authentically you, which this part is where I think it can get different. Like I think some people can screw. I mean, this was a great story. Like the vasectomy dude that I was telling you, I listened to a podcast about a doctor who gives vasectomies, and every single time he gives a vasectomy to someone, he gives them a nice leather knife because he knows that's a talking point, and that's so on brand with his target market. I think that's cool because it's your outside of the box thinking that gets you to that brand, right? When you disrupt and make a name for yourself in a certain way that's hasn't been seen before, I think you're more likely to establish your brand versus, just trying to make sure you got a cool logo and posting.
Yep. I think so. What I've noticed is there is things that every brand needs, right? It's 2020. You should have a website and you should have a brand, right?
100%.
And a visual identity, to your point, right?
1,000,000%.
That's table stakes. But what I think is very different is what that brand is, right?
100%.
And that's where, what are you going to draw out in that visual identity and how, and I think that's where you're very good is, right? Everyone needs that logo, but just
Appreciate
having
you.
a logo and a website for the sake of it, that ain't it, right? It's
no, not at all.
it's you are good at connecting, I think, a narrative and helping people define and verbalize what they are and the values they want them and their business to prescribe to, and then taking that and building it into a visual identity through logo, through type font, through color scheme, right?
Yeah, that's good at it. Maybe, but I enjoy the fuck out of it. I'll tell you that. Like to me, it's so interesting that honestly, a lot of the business owners and people I've met, and whether it's a nonprofit, even band, I love doing work for musicians because that's my passion. That's what I love doing in life. So when I'm able to help other artists, communicate who they are, it's fun for me because it's almost like I get to learn about people as well.
Yep.
From we've had I have had clients in rural areas. I've had clients in New York City. I've had clients like in Florida. I've had international clients, and every single time like I get to work with them on something, it's always so interesting to me that I'm helping communicate their culture through, aesthetic design or even, messaging. So it's fun. At the end of the day, good at it, maybe. I think I'm getting better at it, but
I definitely think you're good at it. I definitely think
Appreciate
you're good
you.
at it. As I mentioned, when I started Geist, I wasn't 100% sure what it would be, right? My background is in, like I said, in finance and in private equity. So I'd seen a lot of different businesses. I had the opportunity to work in an organization that had some extenuating circumstances, some pretty challenging public relations related to the ownership group who was in a tough spot, right? And so learning how to navigate through that, I really enjoyed. It helped me in that organization. I think there was a lot of hustle. There was a lot of good things like go, 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 and an entrepreneurial passion. But there wasn't necessarily, I think, a willingness to really meet people where they're at, right? Have a human element that's real and accepting of the truth at all points and not being willing to bend on that at all. So I knew I'd learned a lot from that and started Geist. And what we started was just helping companies operationally, right? Hey, you guys need help building this process? Sure, we'll come help you. Do you guys need help cleaning up your financials? Let's help. And then as it, I think, developed and as I brought on Clayton, shouts out Clayton.
Shouts out Clayton, 100%.
Who's a partner now, and we really started to define what we knew the values, right? It was people, got to do the right thing by people first, whether it's employees, vendors, stakeholders, got to do the right thing. It was pragmatism. We helped businesses do that, right? Sometimes it can be analysis paralysis, but you just got to get it done, right? Take the next step, check a box, and keep plugging. And then discipline, right? Which is be disciplined about what is the goal? What did we do today? What number did we put on the board today to hold myself and the rest of the team accountable to? And
that's one of the things that I feel like in the past year I've learned. I feel like I've learned more about business in the past year working with you than I had like all 3 years before, because that's a tough one, right? Discipline. Like when you say that, like we've talked about like showing tough love and being real with your situation, right? It's like a necessity.
We had the values. We knew we liked business. We enjoyed business, and we really thought that businesses with a bit more structure and I think willingness to be open to discipline, right? Tough love and be more understanding of people coming from all angles, and being pragmatic, just knocking stuff out. We knew that those things could help business, and you can apply them in finance, in marketing, in operations. You can apply them across a lot of different fields. Our background was conducive to helping people apply those values in finance. And so we did a few projects, some on kind of more marketing theme, some on more business development, but we really started to focus in was on finance, right? Helping people build a set of numbers that make sense for their business and gives them an honest scorecard, right? At the end of the day, in any business, your financials are exactly that. It's a universal scorecard for how well is the business doing. And so we help people build that framework and then report in that framework so they can know month in, month out, what's the health of my business, right? You would never, you could never not know your own health without putting real numbers on the board that are accurate. So the same thing for the health of the business.
True to yourself, true to your business.
Exactly. And be honest about what that's telling you.
And
I'm super pumped about the acquisition. It's going to be,
I'm stoked.
I think it's going to be awesome first of all, it's freaking awesome to be able to work together.
Right.
Fun.
We've done a lot of things together.
Yep. We had some of that stays not on record. But we've done a lot together. A, it's going to be an awesome time. But B, when I think about the story of the acquisition, some people ask like, why'd we do it? Okay. You actually were the one that proposed it, right? So the way I think about it was so fun working together, businesses needed what we were doing, right? We were helping, Geist was helping on the financial side, making a cleaner scorecard for businesses to run their business on. And when we worked together, we'd bring in Horizon to help tell their story, right? Which a lot of these companies really need. They were doing an awesome service, but they need their story told. And well, shit, wouldn't it make sense if we could do all of that?
Exactly, right?
So, I think that thought had crossed my mind, but I'd never vocalized it. I wasn't sure, like, would you be willing to do that? You definitely had an awesome thing. Like, you were able to run your business and pursue your passion in music. So I'd hesitated to say anything. I think it had maybe fleetingly crossed my mind, but like, oh, that's not realistic. And then we were sitting down talking about some of the projects that we had together, and on your, like, literally on your front porch, just like,
dude, yeah,
classic.
I think you're on a run or something.
Yeah, I was running past your house. I was like, classic small business shit. Like, damn, I'm running past Javi's house, thinking about him. Let's sit down and talk about this. And we were sitting down, like, talking about, I think it was Atlantic, maybe one of the clients or one of the others that we've worked on together. And you were talking about how our website needed some updating. You said, well, I do this for Horizon. Like, why don't we just put this together?
Exactly.
Like, we can word it however. And I think
I realized working with you guys on those first projects that I wasn't able to deliver the value I wanted. To be honest, like, if I'm being real, 100.
Yep.
I wasn't able to deliver what I wanted because there's so many moving pieces when it comes to business,
Yep. Yeah, exactly. We, when we'd work together with a client, we'd get really passionate about it. So the fact that you proposed, like, hey, let's structure it as an acquisition, and we'll buy the business out, and then really have something that's awesome for businesses, right? I mean, what I think, and what you've always wanted to do is help businesses be a force for good, right? Whether you said that explicitly on the website or not, that's definitely what we want to do. And having all the services that we collectively can deliver under one roof.
I just know, like, working now, right? Like we said earlier, like, college, Javi should have been taking some more precautionary measures before starting a business. But, like, now I realize just, like, the happiness of doing what I love to do every day, and how, like, intangible, like in priceless that asset is. So, like, when I see people doing things that they love, it fuels me up. Like, I fucking get stoked when, and like some of our clients right now, like, they get so creative in whatever it's a product or a service they offer, and they're so passionate about it. It excites me that there's people out there like that. You're right.
Facts.
So
yeah, and if we can build a business that gives us the opportunity to be around those people, blessing.
100%. Like,
blessing.
that's a daily, like, just being able to talk to people that are stoked about their day in, day out. Don't get me wrong. Like, obviously, like we've talked, and as we know, there's tough situations, and there's tough parts, and there's disagreements, and there's thoughts that can be kind of negative. But at the end of the day, when you are surrounding yourself with people you love and people that you love to work with, and the energy of everybody's on the same team, same goal, like, it's pretty tight.
Could not have said that better myself. And I think who knows what's going to happen, but it's going to be fun, and we're going to do some great things for some clients. And I think they're going to be able to do some great things in their world.
Your first podcast. He's all grown up. Look at him.
We're going to do some intense learning. Like I said, we're going to do some intense learning on the podcast side. It's going to be fun, though. We love these conversations. Beyond that, this podcast is going to do a lot of things. We're going to have a lot of fun conversations, but I think what we want to be able to do is tie some of the themes back together, whether it's an artist or a business person or a philanthropist or a politician. So one of the questions I have for you are, who are 3 people whose values you admire, and why?
All right, 3 people, values I admire, and why? All right, just anyone?
Anyone.
All right.
Could be family, could be...
I'm going to start off with my brother, Dr. Lifted Daniel. Something that he's taught me that, then in case I'm honestly trying to teach you other people, it's like, to just, like, not care about people's opinions. Like, that's a value I think that is often overlooked nowadays, and it's tough. It's like, don't get me wrong, it's a tough thing to believe in and to actually practice, but like not giving a fuck about other people's opinions is so important in, I feel like, every aspect of your life, because everybody's doing it different. Whether it's business, there's a million ways to do something. Whether it's personal growth, whatever, there's a million ways to do it. And when you let go of that pressure from outside influences, like the growth you can attain is insane. So shout out D-Rod, aka Dr. Lifton, on that one, because like that motherfucker don't care.
Dude, having a calling is a blessing, and not everyone's going to recognize that. You got to be willing to chase it, yeah? Regardless of what other people think, right?
Yeah, exactly. You just got to be passionate about what you're passionate about. Two, I will say, yeah, that's a good question. This was good. I'm glad you didn't tell me before.
The hard hitters.
Now it's like, all right, I'm in the hot seat. Let's get it. Bobby Hundreds, who started the Hundreds. I read homie's book recently, and so he came from an Asian immigrant family and built, the Hundreds streetwear brand.
Yep. I've heard of it. Don't know it super well, to be honest, but definitely know of.
And one of the things that I learned like through his book was like the value of perseverance. Like it was a really good book because it told a story of like how they started in the garage, like apartment situation, shipping t-shirts out, just doing what they thought was dope next, not really like listening to, he really drives the point home, not really listening to like what you think you're supposed to be doing next, but what you feel like you're supposed to be doing next. And now they do some dope ass shit. Like they collab with like different people for different drops, and it's like, it's art and it's culture. So to me, like the value of perseverance that got somebody from like he was in law school, like somewhere at a UC school in California, and he like dropped out to do the t-shirt thing. So like I respect moves like that, courageous, advantageous, whatever you want to call it. Like,
yeah, chasing a calling. I think a lot of people like this, one of the things we talk about is the Hundreds. It sounds like a brand a lot of people know, right? And people probably glorify what that brand is, but what that meant was dropping out of a pretty successful career and slinging t-shirts out of a shitty apartment.
Yeah, 100%. Exactly. And it's like, you don't hear anybody that did anything great without going through that time, right? Like, even now, so, like, whether it's music or whether it's business, like, you're always going to be learning. And I think it's very important to have fun in the moment, right? Regardless if you're in that little shitty apartment or if you're on that, big ass private jet, like having fun in the moment is an important trait to have at all times. Because like,
it's the only way you can be happy pursuing what you really like, right?
100%.
Yep.
Because there's going to be some bad times. There's going to be some negative ass times. Third person. I'm gonna combo it. Can I combo it?
Yeah.
I'm hitting the combo.
We can allow some stretching of the rules.
I'm gonna shout out my boys Jacob Laham and Matt James, because they both live to the beat of their own drum. And if I hadn't surrounded myself with people like that, I wouldn't be doing the same. 100%.
Yep.
And I think that's rare to come by. So shout out squad.
The courage to be different, man. That's
courage to be different, exactly.
Yeah, I think that's a theme that we'll probably hit on more than once here, right? And those, happen to know those guys, and definitely courage to be different. Yeah, I like that.
They live to the beat of their own drum.
Facts, and they're a blast to be around because of it, right? And they're doing great things because of it, right?
Yeah.
Because they're different. So you talked about 3 people you admire. How about 3 brands? What are 3 brands that you think have a great concept that you admire?
Yeah, okay. So 3 brands I admire. I would say Ruka. I was always just a fan of the story of the owner, who eventually ended up selling it to Billabong, but Pat Tenori, if that's how you say it right, I'm actually not sure. He just started pretty much like selling t-shirts and selling art, had this whole concept of balance of opposites, and just kept doing like different stuff, like from jiu-jitsu to surfing to skateboarding, music, artists, and created something really cool and original that I think a lot of people are trying to emulate now. And a big part of the reason was because that brand had so many stories, and continues to have. They'll drop something Ruka Skate or the Ruka Surf, They're constantly collaborating with different artists on merch. So just because they're very good at storytelling, I think Ruka definitely would be one of those brands.
Yep.
Another brand I love, I would have to say, honestly, probably Nike. Nike's always pushing the envelope. Like Nike's always doing things that aren't in their wheelhouse, and people think they would never be able to do, and they do it anyways. So I'm a fan. I like that.
I like Nike too. That great book, Shoe Dog. If you haven't read it, excellent book about the founder of that business. Nobody's perfect, but I mean, he's super honest about the story in the book. If you like the brand, you can see some of the heritage in that.
Dude, I kind of honestly like In-N-Out.
Okay.
Because when I think of In-N-Out, it's like, and maybe this is because we're from the East Coast, but it's like this is something that nobody in the East Coast will ever have.
Yep.
But when you do go get it, it's straight smacking.
Yeah.
Like it's like the food's good, it's different. There's nothing like that around here, and I like that it's just like so simplistic, and they aren't trying to be extra. So yeah, I would say In-N-Out. Like I'm a fan of brands that kind of just like stay core to who they are.
Yep. What are some common themes across those businesses? Like, what are some of the things that make those brands great? I think you hit on those a little bit, right? Narrative or core focus. And then how can some of those concepts be applied for a smaller business, right? Like, not everybody can be Nike.
Yeah.
So some of the clients that we might work with, how could they apply those concepts to their brand?
So I think a big part of it is taking everything step by step and doing what feels true versus what feels needed.
Yep.
I think like we spoke earlier in this episode that not everybody like hears buzzwords like logo, graphics, like TikTok, Instagram, like that's like everybody feels like that's what they need. There's a list of things they need, when a lot of the times discovering who you are is more important than those. That's going to keep changing. Brand value, I think, comes from knowing at core who you are, right? And who the brand is and what the values are.
So almost, I think it sounds like what you started to establish is the first step to great branding is small business owners really thinking about their story, getting comfortable with it, and then getting comfortable with telling it beyond just their inner circle, right? And that's step one.
It's step one, yeah, because we live in a different age where, even us as growing up, we didn't have smartphones growing up, and now like the generation after us is like they've had iPhones since they were like 11, or whatever, maybe younger. iPad in front of them, so it's like we're going into this age where everybody's a content creator, everybody's a photographer, everybody's a videographer, like. Just with YouTube, you creating your own channel, like this is a show, like a perfect example is this show. And I think that being able to translate your message into all those different mediums, whichever you choose.
Yep.
At first it might be just Instagram. You might just be an Instagram brand right now. You're a brand, you have an online store or whatever it is, and you market on Instagram.
Yep.
Instagram, let's pretend, Instagram dies tomorrow. Probably won't happen. And then you figure out that YouTube might be a great place for you. That's the way I would kind of think about it, one by one.
Yeah, so not try to bite off more than you can chew, right? Get really good at telling your story, whatever that is, right? Which is different for everybody. And then let's apply it to one medium at a time, right? Was it just photo on Instagram, and do that really well?
If you know who you are, you're going to be able to translate it into whatever. That's the real thing. At the end of the day, like I said, like there's a bunch of people that do content now.
Yep.
You are you. Your brand is you and the values you exemplify in it. So what are they? What's the narrative? How did you guys get there? What do you do? And what do you hope to achieve? And just being able to like tell that story in a bunch of different mediums, I think is going to be crucial for any brand, moving forward.
Cool. Those are some great tangible things that business owners can, I think, take and practice as they learn to build telling their story. So I think one of the reasons, kind of alluding back to, we talked a little bit about the acquisition story, but one of the things that I think was able to make that successful was, and I don't think a ton of people know, is I think one of the things is you've talked about how you really think business can be a force for good. And I think you've got a unique background with your family and where you came from. So why don't you start with telling us a little bit about your background and where you came from, and then why you think and what you've seen businesses be a force for good.
Cool. Yeah, 100%. So yeah, my mom's from Venezuela. My dad's from Peru.
Yep.
My grandparents are from Spain. So both my mom and my dad moved to America. I was born here in Raleigh, North Carolina, but I definitely never associated with one culture versus the other.
Yep.
Like whether it was American, whether it was Venezuela, or whether it was Peru. A lot of my culture became what I was doing at that time: skateboarding, music, etc. So having the experiences that I did and just being able to luckily see so many different paths of life at a young age, I think made me realize that the world's big. And so definitely after getting my 9-to-5, my first 9-to-5, I just wasn't happy.
Yep.
Especially because I just knew how big the world was. And that's something that I'm passionate about. And being able to learn constantly is very important to me. So I started my own business, as we just talked about earlier. And I think that going through that process made me realize is that business could be a force for good. I think a lot of people say that, but until you really realize what business is and what it can do, you're not going to understand that. There's from finances, the way that people use it, an advantage towards their taxes. There's, being your own boss. There's a bunch of different things, but until you realize what's going to create your own happiness, it's just not something that you're going to know right away. Business can be a force for good also for people that don't start their own businesses. And that's very like an important part that I kind of just confusedly communicated. So basically, in a sense that if someone brings a brand and cultural value to a business that makes the people around them happy, then they're doing their job.
Yep.
And that sometimes means Lambos and jets for the company, and that sometimes just means, creating a family culture.
Yep.
Or maybe some people thrive in a competitive culture. Like there's so many different types of people in this world, and to think that every single company should have the same values and the same way of working and the same thoughts and the same processes, like constantly. Like I think that's a dull world.
Yep.
Like there's going to be companies that thrive on a competitive atmosphere. There's going to be companies that thrive on an artistic atmosphere. And I think that business can be a force for good by letting the culture of the business run what is considered success versus, just focusing on dollars.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. It sounds like, coming from a diverse background, I think you've seen both the negatives of where, business quashes people's, ability to be creative, right? You talked about in your 9-to-5 where, you weren't allowed to be your full self and go chase what you wanted, right?
I'm also reckless, so I don't recommend it.
But then also, right, if it can be a platform for people to, bring their whole selves and then apply that productively, that's definitely a cool story. And I think what you articulated with being able to see a lot of diverse things from a young age and then apply that through your business is pretty cool.
If you could have 3 people on this show, who would it be?
Oof. So it's funny you say this because, part of the inspiration for me for this podcast was there's a podcast that I've been listening to called How Leaders Lead by David Novak. And there's he's had a number of cool guests, a couple of whom I'll get to here in a second. But I think the concept of having leaders that, I aspire to learn from on this show is really cool. So one of those would definitely be the Starbucks founder, Howard Schultz. So he's got a really interesting story. Read his book. He's from New York City, and kind of a tough upbringing, and really interesting the way he took the values that he learned and a lot of things about what not to do from growing up, and then applied that at Starbucks. And Starbucks was, in my opinion, they've certainly had some misgivings along the way, but one of the first companies to do a lot of great things in terms of giving back to their employees. So, and then he also took interest in running for public office this year, which I was pretty excited about, an independent candidate.
Howard Schultz 2024.
I'd be here for it. I think a really pragmatic approach to what leadership could be in politics. So then someone that I have certainly known of for a long time, but hadn't necessarily been exposed to some of his views on leadership is Larry Fitzgerald. So he's someone who was on the How Leaders Lead podcast, and I thought his approach was really pragmatic in that it's got to be, when you lead, you got to show up in a sustained way over a long period of time. And if you get too emotionally high or too emotionally low, then that can get you off course. But you will experience both those. You just got to make sure to kind of sustain your process through that. So I'd be interested in hearing a little bit about that approach. And then for the third, I'll kind of split this one, but I'll say my grandfather. So my grandfather on my mom's side was an editor for the Indianapolis Star. Super smart guy, interesting. He was a journalist and an editorial journalist. I'd really be interested in learning about him on how to communicate on controversial issues in a way where he was able to cover people from both sides of the aisle and do it over on a long period of time, and write about a lot of interesting issues, both domestically and abroad. And I think that to hear some of his experience would be really cool. And unfortunately he's passed, but that would be someone that, dream guest.
Dang, yeah, be tight.
And then my grandfather on my dad's side was a leader in the insurance space. And I think, based on everything I know about him, he would have been someone really cool to talk about how you can be a business leader, but also someone that, still brings a lot of brevity. You don't have to be super serious at all times. So those would be the final couple that I would love to have on.
Sick. Well, dude, soon. We'll see. We'll see
who we can get to take us up on that. But I think we're gonna have some great conversations nonetheless, and I'm looking forward to episode 2.
Thanks for having me, bro.
Appreciate you, man. All love. Until next time.